it over to Congresswoman Malliotakis.
Well, thank you very much to the Center for inviting me to participate today. And I want to thank my colleague, Albio, who's been a great advocate for the Cuban people. And I share his concerns very much. I am a freshman representative, as you mentioned, from New York City. My parents are both immigrants. My father's from Greece. My mother is from Cuba. My mom fled the Castro regime in 1959. Unfortunately, in my family's circumstance, my family was split. My grandmother and my aunt came to the United States. My grandfather stayed behind because he had 2 gas stations, and there was a small business that he wanted to stay with. And eventually the regime came and took everything from him. So I do have family still in Cuba. My uncle and I have multiple cousins that are suffering tremendously under this brutal, murderous dictatorship. This communism that has just ruined everyone's life and has split families apart and has really taken the dreams and aspirations of the Cuban people. In Cuba, I think people need to understand what it's like. First of all, you all work for the government and you make $15 a month, $15 to $20 it translates to. There's a dual currency system in which you're paid with the Cuban peso, but everything is sold in the American dollar, equivalent of the American dollar. And so you really can't do anything in terms of being able to really support your family or to even buy something as simple as a pair of shoes. You'd have to work months and months and months in order to do that. And so the Cuban people, those who are fortunate to have relatives in the United States, we were able to send some things, but the reality is the government takes everything that comes into this island, which whether it's medicine, whether it's food, whether it's money, and they use it to weaponize it against their own people. And that is part of the challenge in having just Cuban Americans here who want to support and help their family, but their hands are really tied. In addition to that, Albio touched on the human rights abuses. The people are jailed, they're beaten, they're shot, and we've seen that this happen. And I think, look, it's happened for decades. It happens for decades. People who peacefully protest are jailed, they disappear. But now people are actually seeing it because of the power of the internet. Those videos have been able to be transmitted throughout the world. And I think that's incredibly important. Albio mentioned the need to restore reliable internet access. And that is one of the things that we've all stressed with this administration, the State Department. And they said they've been working on it, but it's been a few weeks now. And I wish it would be a little more urgency in trying to support the Cuban people in this to ensure that they can not only connect with each other to continue organizing these protests, but also so these videos can get out for the entire world to see. I think it's really important to also stress that this is an island that's 90 miles from our shores, and therefore there's national security consequences for the United States of America. I say this to my constituents because I don't represent a lot of Cubans, and they don't often understand. They understand that's personal to me, and that I have family there, and that it's reason why I'm so passionate about this issue. But I think from their perspective, I want people to understand here in the United States of America, the grave concern that it is that you have this communist island nation just 90 miles away from our shores that are in cahoots with some of our biggest adversaries: Russia, Iran, China, North Korea. They are propping up this regime, and in turn, the Cubans are propping up communism and socialism, the spread of it throughout the Western Hemisphere. If you look at Bolivia, you look at Chile, you look at Nicaragua, Venezuela. I mean, that is a perfect example of how the regime, the Castro regime, has helped expand communism, socialism, and destroy Venezuela, which was the richest nation in South America. I'm actually reading a book right now, which is called Why Cuba Matters. It's written by a friend of mine, Nestor Carbonell, who's from Connecticut. I just want to hold it up because I think for those of you who are interested in this topic of Cuba and why it's important to the United States of America and our own future and our national security, I really highly recommend it. I'm only on the first chapter, but so far it's been really good. And he talks about a lot of work that was done from U.S. officials, military officials here, and talking about the threats that it poses, particularly their coziness with the countries that I've mentioned that are adversaries to ours. And so I'll just say that I agree that, we need to push for the internet access. I also agree that the sanctions are a start, but it is just a start. I don't think a lot of those people aren't, coming to the United States and not doing business with the United States. Therefore, the sanctions don't have as much of an impact as we would like. I want to talk a minute, though, about the need for the United States to just play a role as the leader of the free world that we've always played. We need the Berlin Wall moment at this time. Okay, we need like a Ronald Reagan moment where the tear down this wall, and that's what we're missing in this administration. And I've been pushing the State Department. I've been calling for the president to use his power as the leader of the free world to reach out to pro-democracy officials from around the world to garner their support in this. This is an illegitimate, murderous regime, and they need to go. And the only way we're going to do that is if we build support with our allies, particularly those who are freedom-loving, pro-democracy countries. And that's what I would urge the State Department and the president at his level, not just to delegate it to somebody low-level staffer at the State Department, but at his level, he should be having these interactions. I met with the UN ambassador. I expressed same thing, because I'm extremely concerned about the fact that we have China and Russia and Venezuela and Cuba, the worst human rights violators in the world, sitting on the UN Human Rights Council. And if the United States wants to re-engage and re-enter, I think it's incredibly important that we take a strong stand to try to clean up that organization, clean up that committee, or else it's just a sham. And we're giving them legitimacy by joining without not demanding changes and getting these members off of that. So is it something else that I've stressed? But I just lastly want to talk about, this idea that, some of the others that I've heard in the debate talk about lifting an embargo. The embargo is what the Cuban government does to its own people. Anything that comes into this island, money, food, medicine, they use it and they weaponize it against their own people. Look at how the regime, the Castro brothers, live as wealthy kings, and the people have nothing. Okay, so they do business with everybody else in the world, and yet they've still remained a communist dictatorship for 6 decades. United States, re-engaging with them is not going to do anything to change that unless there are serious concessions and changes made. And that was my opposition to what President Obama had done. He's sort of given away the store without getting anything in exchange. So I would just wanted to bring that up as a point, because I think that's probably going to come up in your discussion. But that's why many of the Cuban Americans are opposed to this idea of re-entering and doing business with Cuba, because we don't believe anything will change. And unless we're going to get real concessions, we shouldn't really be going down that path. And I thank you all for inviting me to speak today, and happy to join you at another future time.
Thank you so much, Congressman Sierra.